Honestly, like before, I mean, you must remember, like before applying to schools, I wasn't like econ or honestly STEM inclined at all. Like my dream school was like philosophy at Brown. That was like my ultimate dream. But I studied a bit of econ in high school. I took it at higher level in IB, and I found it quite engaging. So that's why I decided to pick up the econ at UCLA. Um, and while I started as just an econ major, I also found that the econ side of UCLA was quite theoretical, uh, which was good in a sense. But I was looking for a good balance between that theoretical and practical knowledge. And when I discovered the stats major at UCLA, the stats major is more real world applicable. They encourage students to apply what they've learned in the class outside of the class. We actually have like two upper div classes, which are purely based on statistical consulting. And so I really found that that double major complemented what I was looking for in an academic setting really well. And the education that I was learning in stats helped me in econ, and the things that I was learning in the econ major helped me in stats. So it sort of combined to form a really good academics environment for me.
So, UCLA and other large public universities are known for weeding out students, where you have an economics class which is capped anyways, so getting in is harder. Then you get weeded out if you don't do well. Was it really sort of like that for you as well?
I would say it's definitely like a competitive environment. I wouldn't lie about that. Like there's in UCLA there's a term called reader classes, which are classes. So okay, let's track back a bit. So you get admitted to UCLA as a pre-major. So I was admitted as a economics pre-major, and you have to take a certain number of classes and get a certain GPA, which before you can apply to the major and get into the major. So while doing the pre-major, there are these certain courses that are called reader courses, which are supposed to be like notoriously difficult for students to get through. Uh, and so the point is to weed out the students who are not really that inclined or interested in that field of study. I would say those classes are definitely competitive. But on the other hand, an advantage of having such a large class and such a large university in general is that there's a lot of bright minds as well. So you can work with those competitive people, work alongside them, learn from them, give your own guidance, and ultimately look to all of you succeed in the same setting, and all of you get into that major that you're looking to pursue.
Fantastic. So if you were to describe econometrics to a layman, and then, like you said, it has enough statistics and math in it anyways, what are the courses that you study, and what are the applications of the things that you learn in the real world?
Sure. So as a pre-major, we basically more so focus on the theory, the basic theory that will be needed at the upper div level. So Econ 1 and 2 are principles of micro and macroeconomics. So those are very like surface level supply and demand, and Econ 2 is more than we get into like large nations, global economies. Then we have Econ 11, which is microeconomic theory, uh, where you go much more in detail into what you learned in Econ 1. And you do Econ 41, which is statistics for economists, which is where my stats major really came in, because I was able to apply what I learned in my stats classes directly into the econ major. And after that, you can really apply to become an econ major, which is where and then you start doing a lot more real world applications, which so Econ 103 is a course where you study econometrics in depth, which I found really valuable, because that was what I was there to study in the first place. And then you get into like high level courses. Econ 150 plus is more like then you specialize in, like, for example, I'm specializing in value investing. So you do a lot of finance, you do a lot of investments, and that's where you learn the tools and techniques that like you will use in the real world when you go into the industry. So like, for example, I'm planning to go into the investment banking industry after school. So we do a lot of valuations, we do a lot of financial statements, and the things that like we tend to apply in the real world, we can learn those in Econ 150 plus.
So that's interesting because you kind of got a path to investment banking, and then doing these sort of managerial finance, quantitative finance courses is useful.
Mm-hmm.
What are the other extracurriculars related to this path? Is there a finance club or a startup fund or something like that?
Yeah. So
UCLA student?
UCLA is like one of the, for me at least, the UCLA has like a ton of clubs. So we have over 1,000 clubs on campus, and anyone is free to open a club, which means that there's whatever you're looking to do, there's basically a club for that. So for example, there's a number of selective clubs at UCLA, which are completely focused on investment banking. So for example, we have Bruin Asset Management, Bruin Investment and Trading, as well as then you look at like consulting, so Bruin Consulting, and these are like highly selective clubs which you get into, and then you apply what you're learning in the classroom in those clubs, which really helps in the fact that you're able to understand how all of these things relate to one another. Which, and then when you graduate, it's more streamlined in the sense that you're able to really gain the knowledge of like how these things interact with one another. And so I would say like the clubs at UCLA have definitely helped me. Early on in freshman year, I joined like a few of these clubs, and now in sophomore year I've joined a few more of them. And working with those, as I mentioned, working with the bright individuals on campus who are looking to pursue the same career as you really helps you like move forward with your interests and aspirations.
So how is it like for international students to then get internships at this point? Was it something that you do in your rising junior year, or you're looking for working in the US or anywhere else later on?
Sure. So I'm looking to stay in the US after graduation, and actually stay in New York. Actually, is where I want to be. So for that, like I'm gonna start applying to investment banking internships now, like in a month or so. And I would say like in the current economy, getting internships is difficult for like anyone, but it's especially even more difficult for like international students. So you've really got to be on top of your game in terms of like GPA, the clubs that you get into, the industry experience that you have. So for example, I was lucky enough to get an internship in the beginning of sophomore year in a special purpose acquisition company, and I think that real world experience will play a huge role in my internship applications. So I would definitely say that like it's getting a lot more difficult. But if you keep on top of your game, your GPA, and as I mentioned, like your experience, it should definitely shine through to the recruiters in these companies and help you get those offers.
Sounds good. If you were to then, tell us a little bit about your theater minor, because I think that's interesting. Sort of takes your mind away from all the other stuff
Sure.
that you're studying or doing. How did that interest develop? What are you actually doing, and where do you see that being used in your finance world, if at all?
It's an out there one. Like whenever I tell someone that I'm doing a theater minor, they're always like, "What, really?" But so I developed this like interest in theater in high school. Actually, like I was part of a few plays back in India as well, and then when I moved to Dubai, and that's when I discovered like that I liked being on stage. I liked acting. I liked like the process of finding a play, then going through that process of figuring out what the emotions of the character are and portraying that on stage. And so when I went into UCLA, I did a bit of research, and UCLA definitely is one of like the best schools for theater and film, especially being in LA, which is like the hub of Hollywood. You get a lot of exposure into bright instructors, bright guest lecturers. So I would say that like the theater minor, me picking it up was definitely an interesting choice, but it's really helped me. So like I've taken three theater classes right now out of the 8 which you need for the minor. And it's especially the one thing that I noticed is that I'm doing a lot of like quantitative stuff, like econ and stats. I've been doing like multivariable calc in all my classes, and it can get a bit like stressful on the mind. So those theater classes have been like a good mental break for me, where I can just go and be with my friends, just chill out, and get credit for it, which is always nice.